Thank you, couple. Thanks Vera for the help nugget. It's really appreciated. Okay, as it has been said already, we are basically concluding on our study that we started last week on the impact of social media this week. Um, yeah, we obviously couldn't finish last week because there was just so much to say. And it was great that we were also sharing our experiences. It was really great to also learn from everyone who was here last week. So I hope likewise we will be in the same, we came in with the same fire and energy to hopefully wrap up this study today. I'm just going to ask that we bow our heads, and then I'm going to pray, and then we're going to get into it. Let's pray. Our sweet, kind, and loving Father in heaven, you are so good, and we can never thank you enough for what you continue to do for our lives and how you continue to reveal yourself to us. We want to ask, Father, especially again this afternoon, that as we study the impact of social media, as we search our lives, as we introspect and investigate in the very depth of our hearts, that you may help us to realize, Father, if we have gone far off and come back and prioritize the things that are important, that you may help us to see you for who you are and be pleased and delight in knowing you and your character more than any other distraction that is in this world. We ask that you may give us your spirit to help us and to keep us and to teach us your word, Father. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Let me just find my presentation. Can someone just confirm if they can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we're continuing again with the impact of social media, and we had covered some bit of ground last week. We had gone like maybe 60% of the presentation. So I don't suppose that it will take us a long time to get through the little bit of content that is left. But I'd really appreciate the engagement and the questions and the comments so that we may continue to learn together. So maybe just in recap, one of the things that we established very early on in our presentation was the idea that this seems to be a new normal. It's not something that we're trying to integrate ourselves with. Technology seems to be something that is here to stay and something that we need to make peace with. Half of the world, or rather more than half of the world, half of South Africa, is comfortably using technology and spending a lot of time in the internet. Averagely, if you're in South Africa, you spend about 8 hours on your phone and your computer. But this is just mainly for entertainment purposes. It's not even work related, but just mainly for entertainment services. And we went further to see that Facebook is the most used platform in the whole world, right? With just below 3 billion active users. It's a lot of people. It's not necessarily half, but just close to half of the world basically are comfortably using Facebook. YouTube likewise has 2.5 billion and WhatsApp has 2 billion. So you can see that a whole lot of people are actively engaged in these platforms. And I've also made the point last week that it's most likely to be the case that if you have one of these, you have more than one of these, right? If you have one of these, you have more than one of these. So for instance, what's more common for us to have would be Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp. Maybe for those who are too serious, they probably opt for something like Telegram, those who just like stuff, Twitter and Instagram. So roughly about an average of 4 to 5 social media platforms that people are engaging with just about on a daily basis. So if you ever think that you don't have time, you probably do have time. You're just misplacing the time that you have. And we saw that the reasons as to why people tend to spend a lot of time on social media has nothing to do, well, I would have thought in my mind that at least more people will be so thrilled about this idea of learning online, empowering themselves, upskilling, and you know, whatever else reason that could be that could potentially uh, develop your life from where you are. But that's not necessarily the case. People just want to keep in touch with family and friends, you know, filling a spare time, with a very huge percentage of people who are just saying, look, I don't know what else to do with my time, so I'm just gonna go through and see what's new on Instagram. So these are the reasons as to why a lot of people end up or spend most of the time on social media. I'm sure some of you can relate to some of those reasons just as much as I can personally. Okay. And then we said that we were going to build our talk up just based on these 4 pillars that I wanted to establish. And we we only managed to really speak about the first point, really. We're going to get into the social currency, but it's not going to take a lot of time for us to cover the social currency. And then we're going to talk about bloodlines. Then we're going to talk about how social media seems to be killing creativity and growth. Okay. And then again, I'm just recapping here. We spoke about the highlight reel, where people compare their lives with other people's highlight reels, right? So this idea that we always dump the best moments of our lives on social media. And as a consumer of social media, when I look at it, it looks like there's something missing in my life, because it looks like the other person is having it all easy and nice and fancy, right? And that created a whole vacuum and emptiness in our heart, a feeling of discontentment, a feeling of just not being happy with your life, because when you look at your life in light of other people, it looks like other people are way much ahead of you, right? So that's basically it about highlight reel. And then we spoke about this idea of fabbing, and we defined fabbing as the act of pretending to be on your phone, because you basically can't focus on any other activity, right? And I made the excuse, or rather the example, that when you're queuing in the mall, when you're sitting at the restaurant, when you are spending time with the family, and then it becomes all silent for a minute, and then suddenly someone takes out their phone and then started scrolling for no reasons, just because maintaining a conversation and talking seems to be way more difficult than pretending to be on our phones. And another reason why we seem to fall into this idea of fabbing is the fact that we are very uncomfortable with spending time with ourselves, right? So listening to my own thoughts for an hour, that's extremely difficult, and it's painful for a lot of people that they can't even do it, because it's like, if I'm not doing anything, I don't know what else to do with my life. So therefore, I'm going to end up going on my phone. And then we spoke about the impact of fabbing. This is basically where we are. And this was just a question that I was posing to the group, and maybe we can start here, and anyone can share their experience if they think this statement is true or not, and then we can take it from there. So the statement says, social media made us closer to people that are far away, and made us to be far from those who are just next to us. I don't know if there's anyone who can perhaps relate to this experience, and who believes this to be true, or not true maybe. So it would be great just to get a few comments and thoughts and idea on this before we move on.
Then you can go ahead.
I take it that's me, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I will agree with it. I think about 10 years ago, it was pre-COVID. So we used to do a lot of visiting. And I realized now that communicating on social media sort of like gives you the impression that you are in touch, and there's no need to visit in person. So I will tend to agree with that statement. We used to do a lot more visiting of each other 10, 15 years ago. So that is very true. I can relate very well with that.
For sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if there's no one else, that's also fine. I personally believe the statement to be quite true. I think that social media has created a false sense of being present. You know, you go to Facebook and you feel like you're in a community. You go to WhatsApp, you feel like there's a community as well. You go to Twitter, it feels like there's a community of people who have different interesting thoughts, as you engage and all those kind of stuff, right? And as soon as you are left alone, you realize that it's actually lonely. But more than that, it has also been quite detrimental to our relationships with people that we stay with and who are closest to us, and our ability to basically communicate, right? So we have found ourselves to be a generation that is more interested in being on social media than striking conversations with people around us. So those are just the thoughts around this idea. And then we're going to move on to this idea of social currency. Okay, I'm just going to ask that if you're not speaking, or if you don't want to share something, it would be appreciated if we can just keep ourselves on mute, just so that there's no feedback on my side, or noise that's distracting. Okay. So what's this idea of social currency, right? So one of the things that people we barely think about this, right? So social media was born out of this idea that sending a text was an expensive thing, right? So when we used to send SMSs, that was quite an expensive thing, because it would take airtime for the message to go through from one person to another. So it was a little bit cheaper than making a call. So that's basically how WhatsApp started. I'm making an example with WhatsApp specifically. And that's basically the reasons as to what gave birth to the idea of WhatsApp, right? To minimize the cost of communication between two different people who are in different places, right? And we don't think about these things. We often just think that Instagram exists because it exists. We don't think about how it's monetized. We don't think about why it is free, why you don't pay a subscription fee, why YouTube is free, and all those kind of stuff, right? And we think that we're just using a product that is free. So from face value, it looks to be free because to download it from Play Store, it only takes your data. But to register a username and all this kind of stuff, it's free, right? So maybe those who know a little bit of a history about WhatsApp, you would actually, at the very initiation, WhatsApp would make you pay $1 to use the app, and that $1 was basically renewable yearly until they started expanding and did away with it. And we're gonna get into why and how that affects us and impact us today. Okay, but the point that I want to make with this idea of social currency is that we often think that these things are free, and we use them on the basis of the fact that they are free. But if you're not paying for it, you are basically the product, right? So this is based on the premises that there is no such thing as a free lunch, or there's no such thing as free. So there's always a price to pay. It might not be monetary, but there's a price to pay, right? So there is no such thing as a free lunch. That's basically an economic term, basically, to say that it might seem free, but there is a cost associated with it, and that cost has to come from somewhere, right? And in marketing, particularly now, we live in a world where we speak a lot about digital marketing. There's what they call the economy of attention. So you might not be paying monetary funds, or you might not be paying money per se, but you might be paying with your attention, or the amount of time that you spend in those things, right? So that's the idea right there. And again, I also just wanted to speak about the idea of the economy of attention, right? Investing your time in social media as opposed to doing something. And that's what we would define as the opportunity cost, the value of the next best alternative that has been given up. So in other words, well, you know that you have to do dishes, you know that you have to do your laundry, but then Twitter today is just on fire. The tags are there, it's trending, it's whatever that is trending, right? So you've given up one thing that you could be doing to spend more time on social media. And I think if we were to be honest, some of us are very much victims of finding ourselves spending one more hour, just one more 20 minutes on social media, because it just seems much more interesting than the other many tasks that are more productive, even perhaps, that we need to fulfill, right? So there's this idea of the economy of attention. They keep you there, and the social media itself is designed in such a way that they can keep much of your attention there. So everything has to do with your attention, and you come to a point where you sacrifice other things that you would need to do in place of spending more time on social media. And that's, in essence, is what we call the opportunity cost. When you give up other best things that you could be doing in favor of one other thing, right? And there's also this idea of social anxiety. Much can be said about, status anxiety. Much can be said about this, right? But I'm sure we can relate. So let me speak a little bit about it. We live in a world where we have what we call influencers. Right? We have, in my days when I was still very active on Facebook, I was also a little bit younger then, we had what we called celebs, Facebook celebrities, right? People who were known on Facebook. You just know that when you go to Facebook, you want to check someone's status or whatever the case is, post, timeline, as they call it on Facebook. So we have grown into this idea of status anxiety, where young people particularly, are trying by all means, doing everything, so that when they sell themselves on social media, they appear to be very likable, and they appear to have a status in this whole economy of attention online, you know, and that has made a lot of young people to be very anxious about their lives, about what they don't like about themselves, how they perceive themselves to be, some of what they would call imperfections in themselves, right? So young people will end up dressing a certain way, putting on makeup, and doing all sorts of things just so that, you know, they can be admired on social media. And that causes a lot of status anxiety, because our society has kind of made it seem that, you know, if you don't have a status in society, it's like you are nothing, right? You are not relevant. So you need to be Martin Machidze, CASSA, FMVA, CFA, CIMA, SIA, all these sorts of title, because that's what attracts people, right? That's what gives people this sense that, yo, there's something meaningful about this person. Look at what they have accomplished. And as a consumer on the other side, I'm thinking about, yeah, I'm just Martin Machidze, man. Like, there's nothing else. Like, I have no any other title, right? So one of the things that really appealed to me a long time ago, I didn't really think about it then, but now that I'm thinking about it, it was really funny then, but interesting now, right? So when I was still very active on LinkedIn, you would obviously connect with a lot of people that you know, and a lot of people that you don't know, people that you think you can learn from, people who look interesting, right? And at some point, a friend of mine's tag, right? So on LinkedIn, you can put your name, and then you can put your job title, and then the job description, and your whole CV, basically, to sell yourself out, right? At some point, some of us were Martin Machidze, you know, CA, aspiring, what investment bank, all those kind of stuff, right? and like many other young people, until I read one profile of one person, and it just said the name and just doing life. And you're like, what is going on? You know, like, what is going on? What must you be going through that where everyone is trying to sell themselves, when you're just doing life at this point? Guri, you're tired of tags, you're tired of status and everything, right? You're just doing life. And it was funny then, but now it's interesting because you know, it looked interesting at a point now, because it's like this person sees the emptiness and the vanity of what we're trying to chase at time through these social media platforms. And that's not how God wants us to view ourselves. God does not want us to be just people who are chasing the fame and to be known and the status in society and all that. And it's very interesting that even in the Sermon on the Mount, this is something that Christ addresses, right? Maybe we should read these verses. Okay, cool. Yeah, now let's read it. And then I'm gonna make the last point on this slide. Let's read, should be Matthew chapter 6. We're gonna read it from 20, maybe let's start it from verse 24. Now let's jump to verse, let's start it from verse 24, it's fine. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. He cannot serve God and mammon. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought of your life, what you shall eat, what you shall drink, nor what ye nor yet for your body what he shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body more than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much more than they? So God uses the smallest of and what we would deem insignificant in his creation. He uses sparrow. It's like, don't you see these birds? They fly about their lives, they're doing themselves, and yet it is God who is sustaining them and who is carrying them daily. And he says that, don't you know that your life is worth way much more than that? You are more concerned about how society views you. You're trying to obtain this and attain that and all those kind of stuff so that people can view you to be this kind of person. But you're worrying about all these things, yet there's a God who understands and who is way more willing to take care of you and your needs as much as he would to the sparrows. And the idea here is this, that the measure of attention, or the measure of divine attention bestowed on any object, it's proportionate to its rank in the scale of being, right? That sounds like such a fancy line, right? But what I'm trying to communicate with that is that if God can give attention and he ranks the sparrow as important, right? How much more about your life, you who is called to be a reflection of God's image, right? The measure of divine attention that God will bestow on you will be equal to how God ranks you. And we know that your ranking is much more important, because Christ didn't necessarily, or not primarily, came to die for the sparrows, but he came to die for you. So if the sparrows are that much important to Christ, how much more is your life, and how much should you be viewing your life in the light of the cross and not the light of what people deem you to be and how people define themselves on social media and the likes. Okay, so I would like to maybe pause here and take some few ideas and thoughts before we move on to the next idea.
Remember, if you want to comment or ask a question, you can just raise your hand, and we will recognize you and give you an opportunity to speak. So I wanted to comment on the economy of attention, but from a different perspective, in effect that, as human beings, we have that, it's more of a natural thing or a natural aspect about us. We want to be in a community or in a surrounding where people are willing to listen to us, or where our views are appreciated. And but that is the case with social media. A lot of people are in an environment or a social space where they can't be heard, and social media fills that vacuum in such a way that, on social media you know exactly what a specific person speaks about. I mean, I'll just give an example about Twitter. I mean, there's a guy who's always dragging people apparently about accounting and stuff. I think his name is Koshak or Koshin, something like that. So those people, once they see that, today I spoke about, let's just give an example. I spoke about sex and I got 100 likes. And then the next day I spoke about the Bible, I got 5 likes. It looks like people want to listen to me when I'm speaking about sex, just for example. So people end up just focusing on that and speaking about that because it gives them the satisfaction of being heard, the satisfaction of being listened to, and the satisfaction of being appreciated, and also that extra satisfaction to say, you know, there are people out there who think like me. There are people out there who agree with me. So this is just one, you know, aspect of social media and how it keeps on getting more and more followers, more and more subscribers and users, because there are some things which we fundamentally desire within ourselves, which we actually just find the fulfillment of the same on social media. So that's just my take. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to maybe take on that as well. Thanks. Remember, if you have a question or a comment, please raise your hand and we will recognize you.
Thank you so much, Makapo. That's appreciated.
Okay, I don't see any other hand. I don't see any other comment. I think there was a point Elvis was unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to say something. Okay, I guess not. Martin, I think you can continue. I'll let you raise the hand.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move from this idea of social currency, right? And we're gonna spend a little bit of time just talking about this idea, some of the things that we don't see about social media, and some of the blurred lines that we often ignore. And some of these things, we see them and we know them, but we still ignore them. So I just want to point out some of the dangers or some of the hidden things that maybe are not so obvious, and why they are important for the economy of attention, or for these social media platforms to thrive and to become what they are today, right? So there's a tag that I put there. It says, I was scared to delete my social media. I was afraid I'll miss out and end up lonely and bored, right? But strangely enough, I probably feel lonelier because of social media. So there's this isolation that tends to happen when social media becomes more important than our natural relationships, right? And the first point that I really wanted to speak about was this idea of industrial capitalism and surveillance capitalism, and what's the difference, and why is it important for us to understand. Industrial capitalism is what we would know capitalism in its purest form to be, right? You need a good, I'm able to provide the good, I make the good happen, I sell it to you, you give me the money, that's the business transaction. And that's how society functions, right? It's a constant supply and demand relationship between two parties, a willing buyer and a willing seller, right? And that's how society for a very long time functioned, primarily as, right? There were those who were able and willing to supply resources and goods and services, and there was always a willing buyer and a willing buyer who has the price to purchase the good, and the two would meet to transact, and there would be an exchange of goods, there would be an exchange of services, and then there would be an exchange of money from the other party as well. And without getting into it too deeply, I just want us to understand it on that basic purest level of it. You know, it's a willing buyer and a willing seller. The two meet, they transact, business is start, right? But we now live in a very strange world where there's what we call surveillance capitalism, and this is where your data becomes the good that is being sold. right? People are now making money because there's a collection of data and information about Martin, right? So his date of birth, his whereabouts, his favorite sport, his favorite food, his favorite activities that he likes, and all this data is taken. So let's make this a little bit practical. All this data is taken by Facebook, and Facebook decides to bring about all the different adverts that would right on point appeal to me. Okay, I love cricket. I start to see a lot of adverts about cricket gadgets, the games, where I can get the cheapest resources for cricket. And I love dining and eating in nice restaurants. And Facebook brings about all the sorts of adverts that have to do with food specifically that would appeal to me. Okay, right. Moving right along. I'm just gonna ask that we mute ourselves. Okay, so that's the sort of like new economy that has emerged with this whole new lot of social media platforms. There's now way more social media platforms than we can ever imagine, and there's been an agenda to get everyone on social media so that such data can be easily accessible, and you as the consumer, you can find the things that you want so much conveniently, or the things that you think you want because they keep appearing on your face. So for instance, think about it, and maybe just as a reflection point, think about your life. How many things have you bought online that you thought you needed, but you only needed them because they were suggested by a social media platform? Particularly in this case, it will be Facebook, right? Or even Google. Google has powerful algorithms as well, right? So that's the idea, and that's what we're trying to talk about when we talk about surveillance capitalism. And maybe while we're here, there's primarily three ways social media can make money out of you, and it's important for us to understand this so that you know what you're getting yourself into, and that the time that you spend on social media, it's not time for the sake of time. There is a price to pay, and you're probably paying it without knowing, right? Primarily it will be advertising, and this is how Facebook generate over 97% of its profits or revenue, right, through adverts. And those adverts are very much specifically tailored to each and every Facebook user, depending on their preference and the things they like. So for instance, if I was to stand here and let's for argument's sake, let's use Kafwa, right? So Kafwa stands here, I stand here, we all open Facebook accounts, and then our Facebook, though we could possibly have 500 friends each who are all mutual friends, our timeline will be very different, extremely different, because of how Facebook has learned the things that Martin loves. It has learned the things that Kapwa loves, and it has personalized each profile accordingly to what Martin likes, so that it can appeal more to Martin, and Martin can spend more time on it. So when I used to be active on Facebook, I tend to take a lot of break from Facebook every now and then. So when I used to be active, right, one of the things that I used to like, or one of the things that I actually used Facebook for only, was just simply to watch videos, because they had mastered how to give me each and every video that I wanted to watch, right? So if it's particularly for men who would love soccer or F1 or UFC, you will see how each video follows another, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And you'll keep watching and watching and watching, because these are the things that appeals to you. And that's how your data is used to basically get you to spend more time, more money, purchasing and making purchases online. So that's the idea of adverts. Another way social media
Martin, there's a hand.
Okay, let's take the hand.
The Ramapoko family, you can go ahead.
Oh, yes. Thanks. I was going to actually wait for Martin to go through all the points, but I'll just mention what I wanted to mention here before we proceed. So we think about the fact that privacy is quite a problem when it comes to not just social media, but just being exposed to internet, because you don't quite know how much data is being collected about you. I mean, we typically just think about, okay, if I search for a car, then they would start suggesting cars. Well, it's deeper than that. If you think about it, they can start noticing that, okay, you've been buying a lot of things about 2-year-old baby, like which suggests that you must be maybe hitting that baby. So that is going to help them to know that, okay, in 5 years' time, your child now should be this age. So which means you're going to start hearing a lot about back to school and stuff like that. So basically they are monitoring like all these things. So even over time, they can actually like almost figure out what's happening in your life, because you keep providing information about where you have been, what you like and stuff like that. Now, it always is a problem that you don't quite know how much information is being collected. Just to give you an idea, one time they were asking Mark Zuckerberg about whether there is what they call shadow profiles. So this is actually profiles that are created. Let me say that you don't have any account about Facebook, but you keep searching and stuff like that. So they're busy collecting information about you. They're getting your name, they're getting where you stay and all these things. They're busy basically collecting information based on the device that you're using, such that by the time you create a profile, I've heard that in some instances, there was even a suggestion that would say that, okay, well, you don't quite need to give us information because we already sort of like have your information. Do you perhaps want to use this profile that we have created for you, which was that shadow profile? And so you've got an option of either going with that or you create a new profile. All I'm trying to say is that, we don't quite know, like, I mean, like you think about the fact that even on your phone, you don't know when they basically listen to the audios and stuff like that. But trust me, it seems there is so much information that is just being collected, not only when you just search, but even when you're doing nothing. As long as your phone is there and your laptop is there and all these things, understand that there is so many things, so much information that is being collected. And that can actually, let me say that is just the risk that we have to live with. Because like, let me just leave it there for now.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I think one important point, maybe just to say in passing, is that if it's time to run to the mountains, it might not be very difficult to locate you, just based on how much information you're running to the mountains because things are falling apart in the normal economy and in the cities, right? As Revelation would say, that there will come such a time. And I'm making a suggestion, I'm making an argument that it perhaps might not be very difficult to locate where you are. Okay, and I'm just alluding to this point that there's way much more in the background that happens than what we know or think we know. Okay, so I was still saying that advertising is just one of ways that popular social media platforms like Facebook tend to use in order to make profit, right? And then there's in-app purchases, right? In-app purchases would be, you know how, well, I think, yes, I can think of two good examples, right? In-app purchases would be similar to a subscription model of a business, and we know Spotify and YouTube to be very, very good with this. YouTube have this premium account that you can subscribe to, where you can play the music in background when your screen is off, and all those kind of fancy stuff, whatever else they're selling. And that's in which businesses tend to make profit, to make money. But particularly in-app purchases would be, I don't know, the only one example that I can think of using right now, it might not be much relatable because I don't suppose all of us uses it or are aware of it. But if you ever use Canva, the thing that the software that you use to design posters and all those kind of stuff and make all those nice graphs and posters and logos and business cards, you'll see that there's the normal account where you can do the stuff, but there are things that you won't be able to do unless either you subscribe or you purchase an item on Canva, right? So those are in-app purchases, things that money that you would have to purchase in order for you to use a specific part of a software or a website, because it's much more advanced, right? And of course, the last point, we've already touched on it, is selling of data, right? It's selling of data. And that brings us to the second point of monetization and the way in the WhatsApp case study. It's a mystery, right? Because we don't think about just how this whole thing works. Of course, like any other business that exists, WhatsApp has to make money, and it can't make money if it's a free app. There's just no incentive there, right? It's like, what's the point of operating if we're a business but operating as a non-profit organization? Mark Zuckerberg is not about that life, right? So maybe let me just build the context for you to understand what's happening here. You might remember that WhatsApp was bought by now Meta, Facebook back there, 2014, right? At a ridiculous amount of 19 billion rands. WhatsApp started about 2010, 2009. It was definitely not worth 19 billion rands. In fact, the latest revenues that the company had made at that point when it was bought for 19 billion rands was only $1 million, right? So Mark Zuckerberg sees this app, it's booming, it's, people are getting into this network effect. The network effect, we've defined this as, I have WhatsApp, my friend looks at me and be like, what are you looking at there? And I tell them, I have WhatsApp, you should get it, because that way we're going to communicate easily. And that whole thing spreads throughout, and then it becomes a huge thing, right? So that's what we call the network effect. This is the network effect of WhatsApp because people are just subscribing. People are all going into WhatsApp. And he can see the value of this social media platform into the future, and he coughs up 19 billion rands. Of course, he had to monetize the app in some way or another, right? And you might know that WhatsApp doesn't do adverts, it doesn't do in-app purchases, right? But you don't know if they sell your data or not. And this is why there was this whole rage last year when WhatsApp disclosed that they're going to start sharing some of the information from your WhatsApp with the parent company, Facebook. What's interesting is that thing made people very angry. But when Facebook clarified, they were saying that, no, we're just disclosing this, but this is something that we've been doing for a very long time. And the reason why they disclosed it is because at the time, Apple had just updated its private policy, right? And it required every social media to disclose that if they were to use a user's information or sell a user's data, they need to disclose it. And that's why Facebook had to disclose that information. But in their clarification, they made it very clear that no, this is not even a new thing, right? This has been happening. We just require to do it. So a whole lot of people by this time, we are panicking. We think Facebook is gonna get it's gonna sell our data and all this kind of stuff. Everyone is like, yo, I need to get off Facebook. I need to get Telegram and all this kind of stuff. By that time, they're just saying this thing has been happening already. So by that time, you don't even know how data they had already taken out of your own profile information. So it's important for WhatsApp to monetize so that it can stay operating. And because they don't sell adverts and they don't do in-app purchasing, it's only logical that Mark Zuckerberg was going to use the same information to link it to your Facebook profile, and from there to sell the data, and to use it to better generate more adverts that are more fitted and personalized for your liking, in order for Facebook to generate money. So these are the things that we don't think about because we think these things are free and all this kind of stuff. But there's much more to these ideas, and it can actually be quite scary at times because we don't see it, right? So when Facebook messed up last year, it gave it basically made this other app called Telegram to grow rapidly, because people were like, we can't trust Facebook anymore, we can't trust WhatsApp anymore, we can't trust Mark Zuckerberg. He's coming here with his 5G things. We don't know what even that is. So I'm just saying what people were saying, right? But these are the results of having these social media platforms. So it comes at a cost, and perhaps for most of us, when we discover that the cost is much heavier than we were ever willing to pay, I hope it will not be too late. So that's one case about the monetization and the WhatsApp case study. And then there's also this social media platform called Instagram, right? Which often is ridiculed for being one of the most application that sells the most unrealistic standards for young people because of just how edited the pictures are and how many slay queens you would get there, or influencers, I must say, right? Influencers I meant. So this kind of culture where people are just buying and selling stuff and all this kind of stuff, right? Likewise, Instagram started just around the year 2009, 2010 there, right? And on when it launched on the first day, 25,000 people subscribed. And this is why it became one of those instant hit apps. Like it just became big. It became so big, right? And obviously we know that, again, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like competition, so he bought it for 1 billion rand compared to the 19 billion that he paid for WhatsApp, interestingly. And now it's part of Meta, right? And the same story applies here. The sharing of data and information between the parent company, which basically controls all these other company in order to monetize and to make more money for themselves. And while in the background, when you're just liking a nice picture of a car, they are busy collecting all that information to tailor it for you. So this is why algorithms are very, very important on Instagram, particularly more on TikTok. So if you have ever used TikTok, you will see that TikTok has the most accurate algorithms, perhaps more than most social networking platforms, right? This company that is very well developed and advanced. It was even a threat to the USA at some point when who's this guy? Trump was still the president, and there were talks about banning it from use in the USA, because they were saying it was spying and all this kind of stuff. But let's not get into the political part of it. But the point is, TikTok can literally make you go the whole day on it because their videos are just on point and on just rightly tailored for you. Their algorithm is way advanced, and this is why if you go to TikTok and you look at a video about someone who's depressed, you must be ready to see that the next 20 videos or so, they could potentially be about the subject that you were researching initially, which could lead you or make you end up being way more depressed than when you went into the app. And this is why there have been many reported cases about people who ended up dying because, they had been spending so much time on TikTok and it was becoming very harmful to them because the videos that they were consuming, they are rightly tailored for what they wanted at the time and how depressed they were, right? So that's really just the danger and the dark side of these social medias, that they rely on algorithms, powerful algorithms that perhaps I would even make an argument to say these algorithms, they perhaps know much more about you than you possibly know about yourself. Because this is where the idea of machine learning comes from. Every time when you put a little information about yourself, the machine knows you way better than it did yesterday. Every time when you spend 5 more minutes on each video, the machine is recording and cleaning that data and making a much perfect virtual person of you. It's like, there's this idea of cloning, making another person who is like you. They this basically clone you into this idea of machine learning, and they know way much more about you than you realize. Okay, so that's basically, those are the different cases that we have seen about the rise of social media. Now, I want to say something very important, particularly with this idea of the POPI Act. If you work in South Africa or if you're a resident, or whatever the case is, maybe in different countries as well, POPI became a big thing in South Africa, protection of private information. And at work, it even became an even more important thing, right? So now I even forgot the point that I wanted to say. Got too excited there. So, but anyways, I was making the point that POPI became, it's now a big thing, and privacy also online for ourselves is also a very huge thing, right? And this is why there was the and backlash against WhatsApp last year, when they declared or came openly about their intention to use some of that information or that belongs to you to advance their own business and their own welfare, right? So what's interesting about Instagram and WhatsApp is that the founders are no longer part of these companies at all. So when the founder of WhatsApp, the two founders of WhatsApp, they just retired from Yahoo or resigned from Yahoo, and they founded an app where they wanted to make communication to be very easy for two people, or more people, and that became the case. In order for the business to grow, they obviously needed investors. So they were bought out by Mark Zuckerberg, but they stayed as CEOs of the company. And over time, they were pressured by the parent company to do things that they didn't believe. So if you were to listen to their interviews, they often talk about this idea of how privacy was very important for them. And the reason why they couldn't continue being CEOs of these companies that they had initially started was because, the companies had become something else that they had not created them to be. WhatsApp was now taking information, or Facebook was now taking information from WhatsApp and Instagram. And that's how they resigned from the companies that both Instagram CEO and WhatsApp CEO at the time when they initially started the business. Now, we all know that, not all, but we know that the WhatsApp founder went on to start another social media platform called Signal, because he's very passionate about the idea of privacy, which he doesn't think WhatsApp has. These are the founders of these companies who now speak very much openly against the companies that they've started, and they see where the world is going. They are even worried for the users of the platforms that they themselves have started, but they are no longer the vision of what they had intended with these companies because of surveillance capitalism and how your information is now being used for something that you yourself don't even know. So these are the things that we often don't see or think about, or even think they should bother us, right? But there's way much more behind the scenes than what we see, and that's the impact and the danger of social media. It's much more dangerous than we appreciate it. It can also be argued that it's much more, it has its benefits and all that. But that's just a case for another day. So I'm gonna pause here, and then maybe let's check some few comments or questions.
I don't see any hand. I don't know if there's any maybe comment. But as people are maybe preparing to start speaking, I'll just say I can speak from experience on this data collection that the social media houses do on people, individuals. I mean, I have advertised on Facebook, those paid advertisements, and there was a mechanism called a pixel. So a pixel is more like a code or something that runs on the background of your website. So if I'm advertising that I'm selling a bag and I install a pixel on my website, it means that that pixel is going to collect the data of everyone who comes into my website. So after maybe 1,000 visits, then Facebook can then use that information that has been collected in a pixel to kind of replicate some users who are similar to the 1,000 that have visited my website, and then it increases the population of which it will reach out to, so that it can even get more people to my website. Yeah, so that's why, I mean, just a classic example is this week we were thinking about just buying a camera, and we watched a video on YouTube about cameras, and after that, I think it was, we did that on Wednesday. And then yesterday, when I got into YouTube, going through my normal videos, the advertisements on every video that I was getting into was a shop selling cameras. And quite some time, it's interesting how if my wife searches for something on her phone, right, it's like these algorithms already know that we are married. So if my wife searches for something on her phone, I will get suggestions of the same thing on my phone, even if I did not search for it. It's more like saying, hey, she's your wife, bro. We just gotta bring you all this stuff as well. See what to do with it. Maybe buy it as a gift, something like that. But the reality is the way and the rate at which they're collecting information about us, it's so big that it's even gonna get to an extent where, or it has already gotten to an extent where they can predict our next move. And if they can predict your next move, they obviously can bring about to you a situation where you have to act in a way that they know you will act. So yeah, that's just my small contribution. I see there's a hand from Mufunandibo, and then we will go to the Ramapoko after Mufunandibo.
Okay. I think one thing that I've realized, I normally search for soccer related thing, for example, or you search for the car on any of the app, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, you will see the trend going forward that they're gonna put a lot of stories or video about those things. But if you search for certain bishop or like Joyce Meyer, for example, you search for her today, it's rare that when you log in tomorrow, you're gonna find a related story relating to a religious thing. So I don't know whether is that they are not interested in you going through that channel, or it doesn't benefit, or maybe it doesn't benefit them, the owner of those social media thing. I feel like it's anti-Christ, if I can put it like that. But that's just my observation from my activity that I have on social media.
Sure, thank you for that.
All right. Yes, thanks for the privilege. So I sort of resonate with what has just been mentioned. I'll come back to that. So I want to start with what Cathwell was mentioning as well. The fact that sometimes what would happen is that you would maybe go somewhere and you're in a conversation with someone, okay? So they can see based on the coordinates that, and I don't know if like they also listen to the conversation. Well, yeah, that's something that you just don't know how much they collect, but it seems maybe they can listen to the conversation. And then all of a sudden, you guys go different ways. And then you then receive a friend suggestion of that person that you had just met. And you didn't take the information, but now they are appearing on your Facebook, for instance. So that is because then they can actually be able to figure out that you people have been talking. Again, you have to then understand that maybe they are also listening to your conversation. And based on that, maybe they heard that you guys were speaking about a business idea. And so that you guys can now keep in touch, then they make one to become their friend, or maybe both of you guys to be each other friend's suggestions. So yeah, again, it's just to elaborate the fact that there is so much that is being collected here than we are aware. And you just never can be sure how much. You can just know that it's happening, but you can never be able to put your finger on it. Just like Martin was saying, that even during the time of trouble, like you look at Facebook, for instance. I've heard that like there's an algorithm that they're busy running whereby they are actually sort of like marking certain people as being the threat, or maybe they're teaching things that they feel like they are dangerous. You must understand that if you're gonna go by the gospel of the Bible and you start speaking about all those messages that seem to be pointing out who the Antichrist is and stuff like that, those things that are unpopular, then basically, like, let me say that, like, they're busy sort of like trying to gather information about who has been propagating this information before they can actually maybe like put them out. They want to get to know these people, because the idea here is that eventually they want to make it easier for them to find people that they deem to be dangerous to the society, or that are preaching things that are controversial, if I may say. And then the other thing has to do with like, you think about, let's say YouTube, for instance. So many videos and channels are being taken down and stuff like that. And even in those platforms, yeah, let me say that, like, so many people have been complaining about the fact that they are not able to upload videos because maybe like some people, they try to get around it, and instead of maybe speaking about COVID vaccine and all those things, they would maybe use different terms and maybe say things like poison or whatever the case, or COVID poison, and on all these other terms they could use. The point is that basically, like, these platforms, at the end of the day, you must understand that the people that create these platforms, they never promised us. Let me say that, like, number one, if you look at them, like most of them, let me just say most of them, to just be safe, are not Christians. And number two, they're not all about promoting what you are promoting. So which means that what you feel is important, and the Jesus that you speak about, who is the only way and all these things, they might feel like that is not what they want in those platforms. And before you know it, they can just shut down your channel. So I guess then, like, eventually we need to ask ourselves, what is the solution? Because something that we notice is that there is so much that is being collected, and not only just like information about your email and stuff like that. We're talking about even like your information about your banking, where your money is and stuff like. These people are busy collecting so much that you become afraid when you think about it. So like in my mind, I've actually just been thinking about this for quite a lot, that eventually, like, basically I believe the mentality of coming out needs to basically like is deeper than just coming out of, like, we're speaking about the fact that we need to come out of Babylon, which is the spiritual Babylon. Then we spoke about the fact that we must come out of the city. So now we're speaking about the fact that even when it comes to this like apps and social media and all these things, there is an element of coming out, if I may say. And eventually we need to basically become independent, be able to get to a point whereby we have got things of our own. Because for as long as we basically place ourselves in those situations, we become subjected to the ideologies and to the rules and regulations of those platforms. And we can't really say much when we don't have any option or any alternative, if I may say. So I'll just leave it there for now.
Thank you so much for that. Absolutely.
There's a hand from Vera.
Yes.
Thank you, Sir. I just wanted to understand from maybe you guys and the previous speaker also. Last week, Salvatore Ramos showed school children and their teachers and his grandmother, and he shared this his plans on social media, on Facebook and also on Instagram. I wanted to find out, he says that social media can be used to track dangerous people. Do you by any chance know the possible failures in this case, or why didn't they sort of manage to track somebody who actually shared extremely dangerous views and actually carried out a dangerous act? Thank
Sorry,
you.
can you please just repeat the question?
The question is, there's an assertion that social media can be used to track dangerous people.
Okay.
Ramos Salvador last week showed school children and his grandmother and their teachers. So I'm just trying to find out how come it didn't work at this point in time. Is there any explanation for that failure?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we know to be possible. What we also do know is that it doesn't seem to be in the interest of this company to be playing the police or to help the country to be getting better. So first and foremost, it seems to me that profits are the biggest motivation for any act in the social media. It has nothing to do with how bad the world is. It has very little to do with making the world a better place. I would even go as far as to suggest that that's not even the agenda, to make the world a better place, you know. So from my understanding, I would say that it doesn't appear to me that any of these social media are actually primarily or even at all interested perhaps in playing a role on how well or how better the society or our society can be regulated by assisting police and all this kind of stuff. But I'm happy to maybe take other hands and other viewpoints on this.
There's a hand from Dharamapok.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Just so that I qualify what I said. So basically, I'm referring to the, let me say, like the people that I was referring to, like especially on Facebook, that there is an effort in trying to track them. I'm speaking in terms of like the spiritual part. Let me say like the spiritual aspect, not necessarily the fact that like they've got an interest in trying to make the society better. Because if they were trying to do that, the fact that like it has been mentioned that there were cases whereby people would end up becoming more depressed because they're consuming materials through these platforms that make them to be more depressed and they end up killing themselves. If truly they were for people, they were gonna maybe shut down that channel completely. But if they can then allow that, it shows that primarily they are all about money. So with that said, you think about the fact that there are certain things that you cannot be able to say, for instance, not to offend anyone, but to speak, maybe let's say when it comes to the issue of the LGBTQ, so you would discover that there are people that seem to have some convictions that don't line up well with maybe, let's say, their code of conduct. And not only that, like as I've mentioned, like there are people that would, let me say that like there are people that would speak strongly against the practices of certain religious groups that maybe they feel that the system, the system itself is that of Antichrist. And those people as well, either maybe like some parts of the videos will be muted or will be removed, or some of the videos will be removed, or the entire channels will be shut down. Like I know like a couple of people in particular who like some that would end up, what they would do is that instead of putting those controversial videos on YouTube, for instance, they'll put them on alternative platforms because they feel that, or maybe they receive threats from YouTube, for instance, that will say that if you keep on talking about these certain subjects, unfortunately, we're not gonna allow you to basically stay there. So that's what I meant when I said that, like, they would then deem those people as being dangerous to the society. Now, if you then think about where this thing is all going, and the fact that like one time when we're speaking about the finger of the Jesuits and how they would seem to be wanting to infiltrate every system, you then understand why there would be an effort to try and trace ahead of time who actually believes in what. Because eventually, like the whole idea is so that like by the time basically they need to implement what they want to implement, they actually know, or they have information that helps them to understand who their enemy is and how to go about basically attacking the enemy. So they're gonna need sufficient information, if I may say. Well, that is just my opinion and yeah, let me see, yeah, it's my opinion. The fact that the information that is being collected about certain people, like there is someone in the background that wants to use this information against the people of God. That is just my submission there, but yeah, that one is just my opinion. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Any other hand?
It looks like there's no other hand, so maybe you can proceed and we will wrap up soon.
Okay, yeah. Maybe as we're wrapping up, let me mention 2 points just on this idea, and then we're just gonna look at the last slides, and that's it. Okay, you know this biscuits, I mean cookies that you guys always accept in websites. Um, you know, most of us don't even think about what these cookies are and what they are meant for, or what the purpose of them is. You know, you get into the website and the first thing that you get there, it's this irritation of a pop-up screen with cookies and display. It's like accept, right? But that's also part of how they collect our information. That's how they build this virtual person of you, right? And that's how your information is sold to other third party, um, should I say, people. Okay. And the last thing that I just wanted to mention, just of interest for parents and those who would like to be parents one day, it's the founder of Facebook, your Mark Zuckerberg, your Bill Gates, your Steve Jobs, the Apple guy, you know, all these people at some point have come out and made interviews about how they themselves don't allow their children, even in their social platform or in the things that they have created. Steve Jobs is very finicky about how he allows his children to use their phones, or used to, you know, and the likes. There was an open letter, I believe, by Mark Zuckerberg at some point to his daughter about the use of social media at some point, and urging her about the amount of social media platform or time that she tends to use. So even these people who created these things, they know that these things are harmful. These things are dangerous. These things are potentially not good for children. And yet Facebook has Messenger for children. Yet there's YouTube for kids. Yet there's all these, even children are catered for, but their children don't use these things. One of the billionaires who really keeps his children out of social media, and it's almost like he doesn't have that kind of life, is Elon Musk. You know, he has 6 boys, but you hardly hear anything about his children, or their use of social media and all those kind of stuff. These people are very serious when it comes to their children, because they know just how the impact it has, the impact of their social platforms has on children and their development. So that's it. So social media regulation, yeah. I'm sure some of us have tried quitting Facebook. And there was someone who said, quitting social media is so easy. It is so easy. I have done it 7 times. You know, the thing of deleting Twitter, and then after a month or a week, you download it again, and then you delete it again. That's what they meant by I've done it 7 times. And that's perhaps even the experience of some of our experiences. You know, we have tried and said we're gonna keep away, but we find ourselves back there in again. But we need to realize that you know, you can't live your whole life identifying yourself by what social media is saying about you or other people. And there are benefits to regulate your time on social media. And I just wanted to close by looking at some of the points that you should think about. You know, we tend to be less anxious, right? I've basically also kept away from all social media platforms, basically, except WhatsApp and YouTube that I use primarily. But I found myself to be to want to foster more deep, meaningful relationship by me not constantly being on either Twitter or Facebook or whatever else is there, you know. And I know that these things can be meaningful, particularly for those who like to minister or who like spreading the gospel. I know this can be useful tools for them. But even from them, it is required that they know their limits as well, and they know how far to go so that they can regulate it, the time they spend on social media. Yeah, there's a less sense of compassion and empathy. We spoke about this point earlier, or rather last week, when we were speaking about how mean people can be on social media, particularly Twitter. Twitter is so unhinged. It's the most. I can't wrap my head around it, but there's something. It's like people go to dump their anger on Twitter, or I don't know if that has just been my experience, but people are way less compassionate and understanding on that social platform. And I think part of it is the sense of being untouchable. You know, it's like you're a stranger. I'm a stranger. Chances of are virtually almost zero, because first of all, I don't even know where you stay, or I could even know where you stay, but you still stay far, or whatever the case is. But people are just generally not nice on social media. But when you start to spend less time there, you know, sort of like it helps to regulate your emotions. You know, so there's more peace of mind. There's definitely more productivity. I can tell you that. You find yourself investing your time in much more reading, much more meaningful things, much more quality time with your loved ones, and the likes. You know, being off social media can also help with being more real with the world, and being more genuine, right, with your surrounding. Because the life that is presented on social media is hardly the life that most of us are living. It's hardly the life that even the people who are around us are living. So there's an agenda that social media tends to present, and most of us tend to fall for that kind of thing that is being presented there. So your concentration level also increases because of the regulation of your time on social media, and you definitely sleep better. That has been also a case for me. I was speaking to a colleague during the week, and for 2 days back to back when I was in the office, she would say that, you know, I didn't sleep. I was downloading videos on TikTok. I now have 700 TikTok videos that I've downloaded. Like, how do you lose sleep because you're busy downloading videos all night? You know, it's like, no, it's not worth it. So it's, if you're not gonna quit, that's fine, but regulate it. Most importantly, let it not affect the study of God's word and the time that you spend in Bible study and in nurturing and fostering relationship with your loved ones, because the serious and tremendous impact and results of that is not favorable at all. So that's the study. Question, comments, let's wrap up. I've put in a little bit of some of the things that you can watch or read as part of the resources. I'm sure the slides will be sent in the next few days, if not tomorrow. So these are some of the things that you can watch and read when you have time, just to look at how these things come about, and it documents how just basically the history of these social media platforms, and it could be interesting. So these are basically hyperlinks you can click directly once you have the study, or you can just search by the names that are on your screen as well. I'm sure most of us are already aware of Social Dilemma, but Thank you so much for listening through and for your valuable contributions and inputs as well. And may God continually bless you as you seek his face and spend more time with him. Amen.
Thank you so much, Martin. We will be taking hands and for comments and questions. So if you've got something, I think you can go ahead and raise your hand and we will recognize you. So we'll start with Mufunandibo. You can proceed.
Yeah, I think the challenge with the social media right now, I'm thinking if we are unable to resist it as grown person, how are we going to be able to restrict our kids in using it? Because I think it will have to start with us to have that discipline to say we're not gonna use it excessively or not use some of the app which are not gonna benefit us, especially with our pursuit relationship that we need to have with God. I don't think social media does help you to do that.
Yeah.
I'm talking from personal experience. I think that there was a time where I deleted all those apps on my phone. I feel like I had enough time to read the Bible app that I have on the phone, because anything that is either on WhatsApp, and if I'm not busy on WhatsApp, I'll go to the app, either listen to the scripture or read it. But the moment you have all those apps on your phone, you move from one to another, and I think we need to be careful, especially if you want to be closer to God.
Thank you. I think that's on point. So it's about self-control and knowing where to draw the line. Is there any other hand? Okay, so I am not seeing any other hand at this moment. So I just want to say thank you, Brother Martin, for doing these 2 weeks for us. I think we thought about some of these things in a different way. And I think you have also enlightened us with some of the things we did not even know. So thank you for that. And I pray that we all win the battle against wasting time and unproductive activities. So Martin, I'll ask that you pray for us in closing so that we can close up the meeting.
Let us pray. Our good gracious Father in heaven, you are still good even now. We are thankful for the time that you've given us. It's always a privilege and a delight to study your word, Father. Give us more wisdom, give us more courage to make decisions that are striving against our flesh so that we can give you more time in our lives. Help us to realize that, Father, we have but only a few years in this world, but eternity is forever. Therefore, we can't afford to lose it over the things of the world. Give us the courage to live for you and to choose you and to be brave in loving you. Remain a good God to us this evening and a kind Father to all. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Martin, and to everyone, enjoy your weekend and have a blessed week that's coming up. Thank you, and see you next week, same time, same place.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.